Our topic for today is Coming Out of Our Shells, the first song and title track from 1990's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles musical, Coming Out of Our Shells, both an album and a stage show. I'm going to break down the structure and the chords for the first time anywhere because a score for this song has never been published in the 35 years since its original release. Let's get started. We're in the key of D major in 4/4. We're going to call our first section the A section. We could also call it a chorus because it repeats the same melody, lyrics, and chords every time, and it also includes the title refrain, so that's a good choice as any. This part starts on an arpeggiated D suspended 2 chord, which was originally played on the recording on 12-string guitar. So this is going to be made of D, our tonic, A, our 5th, D again, our tonic, up an octave, and E, our 2nd or our 9th if this was a different chord. So, and that's going to sound like... This gives us a tonic chord that doesn't quite sound like a tonic chord because it's incomplete, which in turn means that it never sounds as resolved as a full major triad. So instead of this, we get this. Kind of has a clang to it, it's an interesting sound. And this is one of many interesting choices by the composers Bob Bejan and Godfrey Nelson that adds an uneasy and kind of ominous momentum to the chorus. Now the melody finally comes in over the 1 suspended 2 chord after that initial arpeggio. So we have... and then we get out of our shells. And we hold out that note shells, out of our shells. And underneath it, we get the other 2 chords in our chorus progression. We get a G major over B. So is this B, our 3rd, 5th root, or our 4 chord in first inversion, followed by C suspended 2, so our root, 2nd, 5th, our flat 7th chord, or our flat 7 chord. So both of these fit into one bar with the G major over B getting the first beat and a half, 1 and 2, and the C suspended 2 getting the rest of the bar from the and of 2 onward. And 3 and 4 and. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. With the starting D major suspended 2 chord, that gives us this sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. This progression also is something we could think of as a Mixolydian progression, or progression based on the 7th scale degree being flat, because it goes from 1 to 4 to flat 7. This is also sometimes known as a variant on a backdoor dominant progression, or coming in through the back door, based in part on not using the expected 5 chord to resolve to 1, and also how the flat 7 moves up a whole step from below to return to the tonic. So that kind of thing. The sequence works for 2 reasons. The first reason is that the combination of the backdoor dominant progression and the tonic suspended 2 chord doubles down on feeling unresolved, and this keeps the progression constantly wanting to move forward and cycle back around. So we hear this. And it never feels finished. The second part of this is prosody or word painting. The constantly rising chord sequence, so this mirrors the themes of the turtles coming out of their literal and figurative shells and coming up out of the sewer to sing for the world, as we'll hear about later. Now, the first time this goes around, this goes through a couple of cycles on the title hook before pausing on an uncertain note. Literally the flat 7 note in this case over the flat 7 chord. So we have, this is our first A section. We have out of our shells, out of our shells, we're coming out of our shells. And that's the intro. We have like a little bit of fermata there, a little bit of briefly going out of time. And then we go into the what we call the B section, which picks back up with the arpeggio from the opening. So we had that out of our shells. And now we're at the B section, our verse. So let's go on to that. Now, again, we're calling this a verse because it's akin to a verse in a standard pop song form, but we'll mention later it's not quite like we expect, but it serves that same function. I'm going to preface this by saying that the chords here were originally recorded on a 12-string guitar with only 5 pairs of strings, with the lowest pair removed. And that leads to some interesting voicings, which I'm going to do my best to evoke here on the keyboard from the original guitar. Now, the first chord is our D suspended 2. We just played that, a couple more bars arpeggiated guitar again. And after that, the vocal comes in with the B melody, which is going to be over the D suspended 2 again. So we have, when there's music inside of you. And then we're going to go to this next chord, which is a D6-9. And to get that, all we do is we take the A here that was functioning as our 5th, and we move that up to 6. So now we have A to B, root 6, root 9th, or 2nd in this case. Now, for the next chord, and under this we have, you know that someday it's got to come through. We're going to go up to C for the next bar to get a D7 suspended 2. We're only going to play that for 1 bar, and then we're going to go back down to the D6-9 for the next bar. And then finally we're going to land on the D suspended 2 for 2 bars to come back to the refrain. So that's, when there's music inside of you, you know that someday it's got to come through. That's why we're here and we're telling you true. We're coming out of our shells, yeah, yeah. That's the idea there. So not very long. The 8-bar progression there is an old blues and R&B figure where the 5th of the chord, usually the tonic chord, travels up to 6 and the minor 7th before coming back down to the 5th again. We get some extra color here because we have a D suspended 2 chord in place of the more typical D major. So we have, and that gives us a D6-9 on the middle chord rather than a standard D6. In this context here, we have less of a bluesy sound, so we have less of a, or less of a, like that, and a more mysterious, kind of alternative sound because of the suspension. So now we're going to go back for a modified version of the B section that we can call B1. We're going to stay on the D suspended 2 chord and play that for another 2 bars. So now that's going to be, hear the rhythm and you're moving your feet. So we got that. And then instead of going up to that D6-9 again, we're going to play an E minor 7, our minor 2 chord, with the bass note dropping to B, the 5th of the chord. We're going to play this for 2 bars, and that's going to be, ain't nothing like a song with a beat. And then after that, we're going to move down to our 5 chord, which is going to be an A suspended 2. Oh, that E minor, by the way, that was like root 5th, EB 7th, root 3rd. So we got that. And our A suspended here is going to be root 5th, root 2nd, 5th. We're going to play that one for 4 bars. So the first 2 are going to be arpeggiated. And then we're going to strum a whole note chord on the 3rd bar, or hit it in the piano, so either way. And then there's going to be rhythmic strumming in bar 4 to kind of propel us into the chorus. So that's going to be, coming out up from under the street, Lord, we're ready to rock, there will be no retreat, we're coming. That's over the 5 chord there. Like I said, it doesn't translate too well to piano, but it's that 16th note strum, hence the kind of rhythm I played there. Our progression in total there for that B1 section, the variation on B, is going to be D suspended 2, E minor 7 over B, and A suspended 2. A classic twist on the classic 1, 2, 5 progression. So instead of that, we're going to have there's supposed to be a B there, so that. And this is almost a conventional dominant resolution, because we go from A here and we're going to go to D again. So we're going from 5 to 1. We haven't heard that up until now, but the full effect is getting diluted by the suspended 1 and 5 chords. So again, instead of, we're getting kind of a cool sound. This takes us back to the chorus, which we'll call A1 here. We still have our rising 1, 4, flat 7 progression again, but with an important twist. This time, instead of playing a root position D major or D suspended chord in the top 4 strings, the guitar includes the open A string on the bottom. This does a couple of things. Having A on the bottom means that we now have a bass line that's consistently rising up from the first chord of the progression, rather than starting on D and dropping down to B. So instead of going, now we're going to start down here. This really doubles down on the coming up out of our shells, out from under the streets theme. And also, because this is recorded on a 12-string guitar with the bottom pair removed, the A is also the lowest note on the guitar, which lends appropriate weight to the chorus given the lack of other supporting instruments. So now this is our kind of grounding note. And we're going to play that progression 3 times in full over 6 bars while the vocal repeats the refrain, coming out of our shells, and really starts to wail. Then after that, we're going to play 2 more bars of the D suspended 2, I'll demonstrate, over A to transition into the bridge, the C section. So this new section, A1, is, we lead into it, Lord, we're ready to rock, There will be no retreat, we're coming out of our shells, yeah. Out of our shells, we're coming out of our shells, we're coming out of our shells. The bridge, our C section, starts on G major, our 4 chord. G, B, D, G, tonic, 3rd, 5th, or root, 3rd, 5th, root. This is a standard choice for contrast from the verse and chorus, which both start on the tonic chord. Now, for the following chords, I'm going to give you my best approximation of what I hear on the recording, because this is the one spot where it sounds like there might be more than one guitar playing, just because I hear multiple voices moving against each other. What sounds like independently, it don't entirely make sense to me as a keyboard player with conceiving of this in one guitar voicing on one guitar. If I'm wrong at some point, so here goes. We play that G major for 1 bar. Once we got started. And then we go down to F on the bottom and play what I hear as a G major add 9 over F sharp. So 7, 9, 3rd, 5th, root. We could also call this a 4 major 9 in 3rd inversion, or with the 7th on bottom. Then we go down another step to E on bottom and play E minor for the 3rd bar. So far that's... The 4th chord is the tricky one. On the recording, there's definitely an F sharp on bottom, a B, a D, and what sounds like a G on top that plays through the whole sequence. The simplest explanation is just to call this a G major over F sharp. But sometimes, when I was listening to this at first, I really wanted to hear a D6 there over F sharp, and have that top G move down to this F sharp, so we get a nice dominant resolution back to G major for bar 5. And so we can also avoid the bass note moving up into a minor 9th with the root, which doesn't sound as nice as the descending passing F sharp that we hear on the way down. Unfortunately, I've listened to the studio and live versions with the best headphones I have more times than I can count, and I hear that G on top no matter what, and that F sharp is definitely there in the bass. So we're going to call this a G major over F sharp. If I ever hear differently or get some kind of confirmation from the composers, I'll let you know. So that far we have, once we got started, we knew that we scored, learning the music and finding the chords. Now, putting those first 4 bars together, we're going to call that a 4. Going up there, 4 major 9 with the 7th in the bass, or 3rd inversion, a minor 2, and back up to 4 major 7th in 3rd inversion. The next 4 bars are more straightforward, thankfully. We play the G major and G major 9 over F sharp again for bars 5 and 6. We just keep practicing, we stayed underground. And then we play E minor for bars 7 and 8. 'Cause singing in the sewer is a wonderful sound. So we're going 4 to 2. 4, 4, 2. Then for bar 9 and 10, we play an A5 chord or a power chord. So it's our dominant, but now even less complete, because we just have root, 5th, root. And that's going to alternate with what I'm just calling an A6 power chord, which is the 6th there instead of the 5th. So root, 5th, root, root, 6th, root. Which is another device taken from blues and boogie playing. And what's going to happen for those bars is we're going to play A5 for the first couple beats of bar 9. 1 and 2 and then we're going to raise the 5 to 6 for the next couple bars. 3 and 4 and then in bar 10 we're going to alternate those back and forth on each beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then that's going to be singing in the sewer is a wonderful sound. It's a wonderful sound. The whole bridge here is classic songwriting structure because we're going back and forth between 4 and 2 to keep away from 1, and we're bridging those with a passing chord to build tension, and then we're taking a longer 2 to 5 stretch, and then to really build some tension on that dominant sequence before we finally return to the tonic for the chorus. And again, including those last couple bars where the singer really cuts loose to drive us into the chorus there. So that whole thing is going to be like this. Once we got started, we knew that we'd scored, learning the music and finding the chords. We'd just keep practicing, we'd stayed underground, 'cause singing in the sewer is a wonderful sound. It's a wonderful sound. This brings us back to the A1 chorus with the last line of the bridge. It's a wonderful sound, set to the same melody as Out of Our Shells. That's a wonderful sound. Da-na. And this next chorus is going to start with 6 more bars of the now familiar suspended D2 over A, G major over B, and C suspended 2 progression. And then in the last 2 bars, the song is going to stay on the D suspended 2 over A chord. So this is going to be, it's a wonderful sound. We're coming out of our shells. Lord, we're coming out of our shells. We're coming out of our shells. This next section is really clever. It's another modified version of the B section that we're going to call B2. We have the melody and the lyrics from the first half of the verse, so when there's music inside of you. But instead of the chords from the B section, which we originally heard as, they're sung over a variation of the chorus progression. So we have the first line over 2 bars of D suspended 2 like we heard the first time around, although now A is in the bass. So we have, let's see, 'cause when there's music inside of you. And then instead of the D6 chord in the next 2 bars, we're going to go to 2 bars of G major over B, like in the chorus instead. You know that one day it's got to come through. And then for the last 2 bars, we're going to go to the C suspended 2nd. That's why we're here for 1 bar, and then we're going to go to G over B for 1 bar. And we're telling you true, we're coming. And then that's going to take us back to out of our shells. So that whole thing is going to be, when there's music inside of you, you know that one day it's got to come through. That's why we're here and we're telling you true. We're coming out of our shells. Section B2 goes right into one more chorus for the final stretch. We have 8 more bars of the chorus, so same progression as always. With some more vocal gymnastics in the melody, and then after that we have one final bar where we hold out that C suspended 2 chord and slide the melody note down from the tonic to flat 7 to go with that final flat 7 chord. So that's going to be, we're coming out of our shells, Lord, we're coming out of our shells, yeah, we're coming out of our shells, we're coming out of our shells. Ran out of breath there, and then the last note goes down to shells. So what can we learn from coming out of our shells? Honestly, we can learn a lot. First, the structure is really cool. It's more like a classical rondo than a standard verse-chorus form, with the chorus occurring at the beginning and end, and in between the other sections, the B sections near the beginning and the end, and the bridge right in the middle. There aren't many songs that can pull that off, and the first one that always comes to mind for me is Bicycle Race by Queen. So, coming out of our shells is in good company. We can probably credit this to coming out of our shells starting life as an unlicensed Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles musical. Musical theater songs tend to be way more flexible with regards to form. The chord progressions are also great. They avoid a stable resolution more often than not, and even in the couple of instances where we do get the dominant going to the tonic, it's a suspended voicing going to another suspended voicing. Combined with liberal use of the flat 7 as a backdoor dominant and other tricks like the moving inner harmony in the verse, this is a song with a lot going on to keep you hooked. My last highlight is the choice to open the album with a solo acoustic number that doesn't expand into a full band by the end. It's a combination of the best parts of a late 80s power ballad and a stark opening number that goes against the grain. Kind of like Curly singing "Oh, What a Beautiful Morning" on stage all alone to open up Oklahoma. I'm not sure why they expanded it to a full band for the eventual stage show, but if I had to guess, it's probably because the stage show was pre-recorded and it would be hard to have a single Turtle in one of the suits convincingly mime playing acoustic guitar for 3 minutes if you've ever seen video of the show and what the Turtles' gloves looked like. The original studio recording is great though, especially the absence of overcompression and pitch correction. You can really hear the difference when Scott Maynard, the singer who played Raphael, starts out quiet at the beginning and is full-on wailing by the end of the song. If you got this far, now for a couple of announcements. This is actually going to be the first video in a series that will cover every song from the Coming Out of Our Shells album. No one has ever done it before, and I've been listening to this album since it was released in 1990, so I feel like I'm as good a choice as anyone. I'm going to go through the whole thing in order, and if I have any energy left after that, I might even work on the songs that only ever appeared in concert. The second announcement is that I'm putting together lead sheets for every song on the album with complete chords, melody, and lyrics. There's never been a score or any published sheet music for the show, and my hope is that, in addition to making the songs more accessible for anyone that wants to learn them, this will also be a resource in the future for anyone who wants to stage a fully live version of the show. The sheets will be available exclusively on my Patreon for the foreseeable future, and I'll release one in conjunction with each new video. Woo! That was our lesson on Coming Out of Our Shells. I hope y'all enjoyed the first look into this cult classic. If you want to support what I do, or check out the sheet music, please like, subscribe, and comment, and go check out my Patreon in the description below. Please also check out my first channel, How Pop Music Works, if you're not already a subscriber and you want to learn about more like styles like 90s R&B, video game music, and other styles with some pretty complex chord movement going on. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of someone else, and have a good day.